Does it ever feel like you're skating on a thin sheet of ice? You're moving across the surface of your own life, functional, even successful, but somewhere beneath your awareness you sense it. A deep, dark, and powerful current moving just below you, and you'll do anything to keep from falling through. That fragile surface you're balancing on, that careful choreography of control and avoidance, that's emotional numbness. And here's what most people don't realize. This isn't just a feeling of being checked out. It's not some abstract psychological concept you can afford to ignore. It has real, hidden, day-to-day consequences that are quietly reshaping your entire life. Let me show you what I mean. In your relationships, it's why conversations with people you love feel less like connection and more like debates to be won. When your partner, your friend, your child expresses a powerful emotion, fear, sadness, longing, something in you recoils. Your instinct isn't to lean in, it's to dismiss, to intellectualize, to explain why they shouldn't feel that way. Because if you validated their emotional reality, you'd have to acknowledge your own. And you have no patience for their emotional needs, because you've banished your own. This is why true intimacy feels impossible. Not because you don't care, but because caring would require you to feel. And feeling, that's the one thing you've spent years learning not to do. And in your own life, in your career, your decisions, your sense of direction, it's like being lost at sea without a compass. You want to move forward. You want clarity. You scan the horizon for signs, for certainty, for someone to tell you which way to go. But the truth is, you have no internal feedback system to tell you what's actually right for you. No sense of yes, this, or no, not that. Just a hollow echo where your guidance should be. So you do what anyone would do. You choreograph your entire existence around one organizing principle: avoiding the truth of your own embodied experience. You stay busy, you intellectualize, you optimize, you distract. You build elaborate systems of control to keep yourself from ever having to stop and actually feel what's happening beneath the ice. But here's the thing you need to understand. You haven't lost the ability to feel. You've just become a master at ignoring the most crucial guidance system you own. Now, pause with me for a moment, because I want you to consider something different. A possibility you may have stopped believing in. What if you could not only fix that compass, but learn to trust it in any storm? What if instead of skating on that fragile surface, constantly terrified of what lies beneath, you could dive into those depths with confidence? What if you could navigate them with skill, with agency, with a kind of inner authority you've only ever glimpsed in moments of crisis? I'm not talking about becoming emotional. I'm not talking about crying more or being vulnerable in some performative way that makes you feel exposed and weak. I'm talking about something far more powerful. I'm talking about what I call embodied agency. This is a state of unwavering internal clarity. It's the experience of being so deeply connected to your own truth that suffering from a disturbance doesn't linger for a week. It's metabolized in minutes. And what's left isn't exhaustion or numbness. It's peace, openness, freedom. Let me paint a picture of what this actually looks like. Imagine a stressful project at work, an impossible deadline, a client making unreasonable demands. In your current state, what happens? You shut down. You get reactive. You snap at your team or swallow the pressure until it becomes a knot in your chest that keeps you awake at 3 a.m. But with embodied agency, you feel the pressure. You allow it to inform you without overwhelming you. The sensation rises, sharp, urgent, demanding, and instead of being hijacked by it, you observe it. You let it move through you. And from that centered place, you choose the wisest, most skillful next step. Not from panic, not from avoidance, from clarity. Or imagine an argument with a partner. They're upset. They're expressing pain. And in their current numbness, what do? You deflect. You intellectualize. You explain why they're wrong to feel what they're feeling. The conversation becomes a battlefield, and even if you win, you both lose. But with embodied agency, you can stay present. You can feel the heat rising in your own body, the defensiveness, the urge to shut down or attack. And instead of being controlled by it, you witness it. You breathe through it. And you speak from a place of genuine connection, not defense. You can hold space for their feelings and your own simultaneously without collapsing into reactivity. This is what becomes possible. And here's the crucial part. This process isn't about being delivered from painful feelings. It's not about transcending your humanity or becoming some enlightened being who never experiences discomfort. It's about developing a capacity so profound that you are no longer afraid of those feelings. It's about being free to act from a place of deep, personal truth, regardless of what's happening in your internal weather. So, how do we get there? The path to this embodied agency is a specific training system. I call it inner truth navigation. And it's fundamentally different from anything you've tried before. This isn't talk therapy, which can keep you spinning in intellectual stories about your past, analyzing and reanalyzing without ever changing your actual lived experience. And it's not positive thinking, which tries to paint over your reality with affirmations and good vibes, as if you could think your way out of a nervous system that's been conditioned for decades to protect you through disconnection. Inner truth navigation is something else entirely. The core principle is this: it bypasses intellectual interpretation and mental strategies. Instead, it trains your consciousness to commit directly to raw physical sensation, to stay present with the actual felt experience in your body so that you can metabolize disturbance in real time and access your deepest guidance. In other words, you stop trying to think your way through your feelings, and you start learning to feel your way to your clearest thoughts. Now, I know that might sound abstract. It might even sound a little woo-woo if you're someone who's built your entire identity on being rational and logical. So, let me show you what it looks like in a real person's life. There comes a point where thinking stops helping, where the mind, once sharp and certain, starts circling itself like a trapped animal. You analyze, rationalize, justify, until every reason becomes another cage. And yet somewhere beneath all that noise, something small and wordless keeps pulsing. A quiet ache that refuses to be reasoned away. At first, it feels like restlessness, a pressure behind the ribs, a current that hums beneath every task, every conversation. You try to fix it, to name it, to understand it, but logic has edges, and the edges start cutting. Then comes the silence. Not peace, emptiness. A vacuum between thoughts, where even certainty can't find ground. Time stretches. The air thickens. And suddenly, you realize how long you've been living in your head, how far away the body has drifted, like an old friend whose number you no longer remember. So you start to listen, not with the mind, but with something older. You notice the low hum beneath your sternum, the pulse at the back of your throat, the faint tremor in your hands that's been there for years, the body speaking in a language the mind forgot how to hear. At first, it's unbearable. Every sensation feels like an accusation. Tightness, heat, cold. 1,000 small storms rising and collapsing. You want to escape, to scroll, to plan, to argue with the feeling, but every escape route loops you back in. And somewhere in that looping, something shifts. The need to understand begins to dissolve. Awareness starts to sink down, not into darkness but into density, the place where emotion is raw, pre-verbal, alive. That's where truth lives. Not the kind of truth you can explain, but the kind you can only feel. The one that vibrates just beneath language. It doesn't need proof. It just asks for presence. So you stay. You breathe. And in the staying, the sensations start to move. What was once a knot becomes motion. What was once resistance becomes release. The pain that felt permanent begins to shimmer, then fade like mist under light. Then clarity. Not as a thought, but as a quiet alignment inside, a knowing without words. You don't have to fight your inner world to understand it. You only have to listen deeply enough for it to reveal itself. That's the moment inner truth navigation begins. Not as a practice, but as a remembering. The body stops being a battleground and becomes an instrument again, something to tune, not control. From that space, decisions arise cleanly. Actions unfold without resistance. You respond instead of react. You move from truth, not fear. And the same world that once felt rigid begins to move with you. This is what real power feels like. Quiet, grounded, connected. Not the power to dominate, but the power to remain awake when the mind wants to shut down. To stay open when the old reflexes beg for escape. To choose alignment over control. That's the threshold. The place where awareness becomes navigation. Where you stop fighting your life and start steering it. So let's talk about how you do this. Phase 1 is about establishing the foundation. And the first step in that foundation is radical honesty about where you are. See, most people who struggle with emotional numbness carry a secret shame about it. There's this voice that says, "What's wrong with me? Why can't I feel things like normal people? Why am I so broken?" And that shame becomes another layer of avoidance. You're not just numb to your emotions, you're ashamed of your numbness, which makes you more numb. So we start by reframing the entire thing. Numbness is not a personal failing. It's a brilliant survival strategy that you developed probably at a very young age to keep yourself safe in an environment that felt overwhelming or threatening. Your nervous system learned that feeling was dangerous, so it shut down the system. It protected you. And it worked. You survived. You made it here. But that strategy, as brilliant as it was, has outlived its usefulness. The threat is gone, but the protection remains. And now it's not protecting you, it's isolating you. So the first action is simple. Right now, wherever you are, say this aloud. I am willing to learn a new way to feel safe. That's it. No big declaration. No dramatic commitment. just a quiet willingness to crack the door open. The second step is practicing embodiment. Now, if you're someone whose mind is constantly busy, and if you're watching this video, you probably are, you might be thinking, I can't get into my body. I've tried meditation. My mind just races. Here's what you need to understand. Your mind's job is to be busy. Thinking is what it does. You're not trying to silence it. You're not trying to achieve some state of mental blankness. You're just redirecting your flashlight of attention for a moment. And the easiest way to do that? Physical contact with the ground. Right now, press your feet firmly into the floor. Feel the solid earth beneath you. Notice the texture of your socks or shoes. Feel the weight of your body being held by the ground. That's it. You just practiced embodiment. See, embodiment isn't some mystical state. It's just the act of bringing your awareness out of the endless thought stream in your head and into the direct sensory experience of being in a body. And you can do that anytime, anywhere, in 5 seconds. The third step in this foundation is reframing emotion as raw sensation. Because here's where people get stuck. They think they're supposed to identify specific emotions. Am I feeling sad, or anxious, or angry? And when they can't name it, they think they're doing it wrong. But here's the truth. You don't need to know what you're supposed to be feeling. There is no supposed to. Your only job is to notice physical reality. Is there heat, tightness, buzzing, heaviness, sharpness, tingling? That's all. Scan your body right now. Find one point of tension. Maybe it's in your jaw, or your shoulders, or your stomach. Don't try to figure out what it means. Don't make up a story about it. Just notice it. That simple act, observing sensation without interpretation, is the foundation of everything that follows. Phase 2 is about systematic awareness building. Because here's the thing. You can have a beautiful insight during this video. You can feel inspired, motivated, ready to change. And then tomorrow, you'll forget. The old patterns will reassert themselves. Life will happen, and you'll be back on autopilot. So we need a system, a structure that doesn't rely on motivation or memory. This is what I call the 3-week reset. Here's how it works. You set 3 random alarms on your phone every day for the next 21 days. Morning, afternoon, evening. Different times each day so you can't predict them. And when the alarm goes off, you have one job. Pause what you're doing and ask, what do I feel physically right now? That's it. 10 seconds. You're not trying to change anything. You're not trying to achieve some deep trauma. You're just building the habit of checking in. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. This sounds like a lot of work. I'll forget to do it. I'll get annoyed by the alarms. And you're right, you might. But here's the reframe. This isn't about perfection. It's about repetition. Every time that timer goes off, it's not a test. It's just a friendly invitation. You can ignore it. You can notice something and move on. There's no wrong way to do this. But what happens over 3 weeks is something profound. Your consciousness starts to wake up. You start noticing things you've been numb to for years. You start developing what I call sensation literacy, the ability to read your own internal signals in real time. The 5th step is seeking out novel experiences. And watch what happens when you bring awareness to it. Watch how it peaks and then begins to release. You're training yourself to stay present with intensity. You're building your capacity. The 8th step is radical acceptance. And I need to be clear about what this means, because people often confuse acceptance with resignation. Acceptance is not saying, I'm fine with this. It's not endorsing your current reality or pretending you don't want things to change. Acceptance is simply dropping the rope in a tug of war with reality. Right now, in this moment, things are the way they are. You can resist that. You can tense up, argue with it, wish it were different, and that resistance will create suffering. Or you can accept it. This is how it is right now. And in that acceptance, you create space for something new to emerge. Here's a practice. Find a minor annoyance in your life right now. A messy counter, an unsent email, a person who hasn't texted you back. And for one moment, say aloud, this is how it is right now. Don't try to fix it. Don't make a plan. Just let it be. And notice what happens in your body when you stop fighting. Notice how the tension releases, how the mental spinning slows down. That's the power of acceptance. The ninth and final step is facing core despair and engaging the mind. This is the deepest work, because underneath all the numbness, underneath all the defenses, there's usually something you've been running from. A core belief, a deep fear, a wound that feels too big to hold. Maybe it's the belief that you're fundamentally unlovable. Maybe it's the terror of being abandoned. Maybe it's the despair of feeling like you don't belong anywhere. And the reason you've been numb all this time is because some part of you believes that if you actually felt that core wound, it would destroy you. But here's the truth. The thing you're running from is always scarier in your imagination than it is in reality. When you actually turn toward it, when you bring your full presence to that core despair, something miraculous happens. It doesn't consume you. It doesn't destroy you. It's just a sensation. A very intense sensation, yes, but still just energy moving through your system. And in the presence of your awareness, it can finally be released. Now, this work often benefits from support, a therapist, a guide, a trusted friend, and it also benefits from engaging your mind, not as a defense mechanism, but as an ally. So here we are. This entire journey, these 3 phases, these 9 steps, it's all an act of radical self-commitment. It's a journey from avoiding your life to navigating it with agency. And it's encapsulated in a single, powerful declaration you can make to yourself. I commit to staying present to my own experience, knowing that I am the resource that can handle any sensation that arises. Read that again. Let it land. You are the resource, not your strategies, not your defenses, not your ability to think your way out of discomfort. You, your awareness, your capacity to stay present, that is the ultimate source of your power. But listen, this journey doesn't start with that big declaration. It doesn't start with a dramatic commitment or a life overhaul. It starts with something much smaller. Right now, in the next 30 seconds, I want you to do one thing. Take a slow breath in, and as you breathe out, let out an audible sigh. That right there, that small act of dropping your consciousness back into your body, of giving yourself permission to release even 1 ounce of the tension you're carrying, that is the first step on the path. You've already begun.